This is one of the best podcasts we've ever produced at BAM. I get to sit with Chris Smith. He has a vast array of things he's done in his career that are just going to blow you away. This isn't somebody who's just written 4 books. This is somebody who's worked up through the trenches of real estate. You might know him as a marketer. You might know him as an author. You might know him from Curaytor. When you go through this pod, you're going to know him a whole lot better. I'm so pleased to share this with you. Enjoy it. So I want to start with the condensed version of who is Chris Smith. Like, give me from the book. You went through it in the beginning of the book.
Yeah.
The conversion code part 2 of the conversion code edition 2.
Correct. Second edition.
That's what the publishers wanted you to say.
That is what they wanted me to say.
Like, of just your quick background for the few people that are listening to this pod right now that are like, okay, I'm just getting familiar with Chris because your background, your experience in this industry from multiple angles is extensive. Let's go bullet list, and then let's just get into the body of what we're going to talk about.
Yeah. I think I have a very unique set of experiences that no one else has had. And so I feel blessed to have had that. And I think I have a unique perspective on the industry because of it. And so the first was Quicken Loans. You know, I worked at Quicken, and I was doing phone sales. I was an ISA, basically.
Rocket Mortgage for people that are not aware.
It was called Quicken because that was how we got people to trust us.
Yeah.
We said, hey, it's like QuickBooks. And they're like, oh, okay. So that's literally why they licensed the name. And so with Quicken Loans, I want you to picture 2007, 2008, worse than what's happening now. Mortgage meltdown, financial crisis. The loan options are going away every day we come in.
I'm fully aware because I was in it.
Yeah. So that's when I learned boiler room phone sales, when it was 7%, 7.5%. You know, when we had a loan called NINA, no income, no assets.
Yep.
We had SISA, stated income, stated assets. And I wrote 42 loans in my first week. 42 loans in my first week. But it wasn't my first week.
For someone that's just getting into real estate, before we go back through, I said this was going to be quick, your bullet list, but obviously it's not going to be because I'll probably stop you a few times.
It's okay.
For people that weren't in real estate during that time frame, did you have any barriers to writing these loans? Was it just free willy for you to write loans?
No.
And it's not. This wasn't just Quicken.
There was Countrywide was the worst.
This was across the board.
It was everybody.
Yeah.
Wells, Countrywide, Bank of America. Everybody was. Well, the loans were allowed to be written.
Of course.
Yeah. There's movies about it, right?
To be fair, this was not a Quicken thing.
No,
this was
it wasn't. And to be fair, we ran every loan we wrote through Fannie Mae to get it approved.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like we were not getting it approved. It would just be things like, you would go in to put their income, or you would go in to put like their savings, and then it would just approve them for the whole rest of the loan.
I could call you and you'd be writing my loan because I got 3 of these loans during that time frame. I bought 3 houses, 19 to 21, lost everything by my mid-20s because I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I was getting around people in the room like Chris that had so much experience. I could call you and say, hey, I've got $100,000 in my savings. I've got, $100,000 a year in income. Yep. And you're just like filling in the boxes, right?
Yeah, well, you could just type it right in to Fannie Mae. It's called Lakewood. That's what they called it at Quicken. And you would just type it in. You could type it in as they said it, and like you would have the approval as they were talking, and it would tell you that you don't need any pay stubs, you don't need any verification of anything, and you wouldn't even be trying to do it that way. I mean, that was the weird thing.
That was the structure.
Yeah, it was just how it was built. That's why it got tore down and built back up. But I learned phone sales, and I'll tell you the 2 epiphanies I had doing that job. It's a hard job. They work you hard. The first was with this guy named Charles, and he was in Auburn, Alabama. You have to remember, in 2008, internet leads weren't really a thing yet. Social media wasn't a thing yet. iPhones really wasn't a thing yet. DocuSign, Dotloop, none of it.
No.
Quicken was way ahead.
Yeah.
So I'm calling these people that have never done a loan through the phone with a stranger. And some of them had woken up, gone to Yahoo Finance, saw the interest rates, clicked a thing, and I'm calling them. So I remember this guy, Charles, in Auburn. He had like a $700,000 loan. And I felt like I was having to convince my dad to trust me to do this loan because I'm moral and ethical. This guy was moral and ethical, but he was scared to do a loan with someone on the phone that he would never meet. And so understanding that genuine concern, because it was a genuine concern then, it really gave me a lot of empathy for the people on the other end of the call. So I was excited about how cool it was. But that made me realize, like, oh, they're not as excited as me.
Yeah.
So that was one.
They have fear. They're skeptical.
very skeptical. That's why they licensed the name. I can keep saying that. Quicken Loans is so that you could build trust with strangers over the phone right away. Yeah. That's why they bought it. That's why Sotheby's licensed the name. That's why Better Homes and Gardens licensed the name. That's why people license names.
All right, so I already started this pod with a complete lie. I said we were going to go quick through the bullet points. First stop was quick because you have so much more. All right, Quicken Loans. You learned some sales.
Let me rapid fire.
Yeah.
The second person, just really quickly to put a bow on that, was named Allison. $980,000 loan. And I was pulling up the good faith estimate to walk her through it because it wasn't like a screen share. It was like she had it and I had it. So I was walking her through. I was, hey, here's what happens. Like page 1, you see a good faith estimate. It's going to break everything down. I was explaining it. And I was like, the next page is like, oh, I'm already done. Like I wasn't even done with the good faith estimate and she was already done signing.
She was in.
She was already click, click, click. So those two moments were like, okay, there's people that are smart and skeptical, and then there's people that are just pumped about how easy and quick it is. This is probably going to be a thing. Long story short,
it was a thing.
It was a thing. I leave Quicken.
Yeah.
And my next job was with Top Producer. And Top Producer at the time was the premier CRM in real estate. They're a Canadian company. Two brothers, Chris and Randy Purcell. Yeah. They started it because they didn't have a database to track their clients in.
Yeah.
It was a DOS program. It was a disc. It was a CD. Like Top Producer is the BlackBerry.
That's right. Of CRMs. Everybody had it.
Everybody had it. And so I was able to go into any office anytime I wanted because they all had it and they all sucked at it. So I would just go teach classes. So my second job that was sort of relevant was going to offices twice a day, every day for 3 straight years, teaching CRM, teaching marketing, teaching technology to realtors. And
that's when you got connected to the industry in a big way. Because you go into these offices and you're seeing their pain points and you're like, oh my, these guys are pretty far behind on technology. These guys and girls, like they don't have it figured out.
Dude, my first appointment, I said, hey guys, grab your computer. We're going to do a class. And this lady had like a 19-inch gateway and it like shook the room when she set it down. And so I was like, all right, open up your email real quick. And they all opened up AOL. And then I was like, open up your browser. They all opened up Internet Explorer. So I was like, what are you guys doing? It was just like, why are you using that
Before
stuff?
You could even get a Top Producer, you probably went into like basics of like, let's get you on a real browser.
How can I teach a Top Producer if you don't know how to use the internet?
Yeah.
And so that was where we'd have to start. And the timing was Top Producer 7 was a disc and it was an application on your computer.
Uh-huh.
That you loaded and it never changed. Top Producer 8 was 8i, the first internet-based version. And so it was a big moment. It was such a big change. People hated it. They were pissed. They were mad. They were blaming us, yelling at us. These software engineers in Toronto, Vancouver, they don't know what we need. Who are they? Da-da-da. I mean, they were pissed. And I was going in, getting these tomatoes thrown at me. So I get trained by a good friend of mine, Steve Pastinelli. We became friends. He's the CMO at BombBomb. And when I got trained by Steve, I realized that you have to teach. You can't sell if you want to be great at sales in this industry. Because there is so much they need to learn about what you sell and why you sell it and what to do with it once they buy it, that sales pitches just don't really work that good. Because even if they do, I have seen some guys sell with fear and you suck and it's time and you're not relevant, you're going to change, you got to keep up. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really work long term.
Yeah.
So Top Producer was eye-opening. Not only did I get to go to offices, I got to do hotels where I would do trainings for the whole region on Fridays. And then I got to go to trade shows. And I started in the booth. But as I kind of built up this little cult following in Florida, I decided to transfer the knowledge I was giving belly to belly to the internet. That's all I did. I used Top Producer for myself. I had 5,200 people that I typed in one at a time. And so I would try to keep in touch with them in between appointments. Because if they order from me, I got paid. And if they didn't, I didn't. Yeah. And so what am I going to drip on them with for 6 months?
You were teaching it, you were using it.
I was teaching it, I was using it. I was eating my own dog food, as they say. And so I was on the road as a traveling sales guy. 2 weeks out of the month, I never got to sleep in my own bed. I was in Miami. And when I would be there...
Feels like BAM right now.
Yeah.
Not sleeping in my own bed enough.
Yeah. Well, they told me that when I took the job. They said, your head will not hit your pillow 10 nights a month. Are you okay with that? Make sure your family's okay with that. They set the tone. But then when you go through it, it's just different. So I would be done in Miami.
Travel becomes really unsexy really fast.
Well, yeah. And this is a regional traveling sales guy. Like I would fly there on Sunday night and I would fly home on Friday, but I'd have a rental car. I'd be driving around Miami. I hated it.
Yeah.
It was awful. But I would get done, I would get done like 4:30, 5 o'clock, and I'm alone. And so I would burn the midnight oil by creating content.
Okay.
I would just write emails and film little videos, and I would send them out. And just I was bored. I didn't have anything else to do.
By the way, if you're not following Chris's stuff, he's one of the most brilliant copywriters in the entire industry. I mean, with the Chris list and everything you do. So that was the foundation of you becoming such a great copywriter.
I had never written. I still can't believe I have 4 books. I heard Gary Vee say one time, I'll steal his joke, I've written more books than I've read. I'm not
really
intellectual.
You strike me as someone who reads a ton of books.
I read a ton of stuff. I don't read a ton of books.
Okay.
Yeah, I read a ton of stuff. I don't read a ton of books.
How do you consume a book?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Now it's all audio.
So you do audio because
Yeah.
you reference a lot of books.
I reference a lot of books, and the books I reference, I love. So I heard somebody teach this one time. Just pick 5 or 6 really great books and read them every year.
Yeah.
Instead of always trying to find a new one. So there's just a handful of books that I love. Hatching Twitter is one of my favorite books. The Method, one of my favorite books. I just gave you a book.
Yeah.
40 years worth of letters from the Berkshire Hathaway.
Go get the book.
Yeah.
Because we got to. Oh, there it's right there. Here's the book. For if you're on YouTube right now, you're gonna be able to see this. This is an unbelievable.
This is a bam right here.
Where do I put that? Right there.
Yeah.
Can I put that right there?
It's in focus.
Show them the back.
This is the back is even better.
Yeah, you're good.
Berkshire Hathaway letters to shareholders, 1965 to 2014. The color pops. This will go in my new studio. This is like.
I like it.
This is very
Yeah,
cool.
no problem, man. Not as cool as the tequila. Did you buy the guy the tequila, or did he buy you the tequila?
No. What are you talking about? When
On
we
one
did
of
a pod with Johnny
yeah,
Drinks?
Yeah.
Oh, it's Pappy Van Winkle.
Johnny Drinks, by the way, they went from 0 to 1 million on YouTube like
Wow.
that because of their TikTok following. It was
Yeah.
less than a year that they put that following together on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they agreed to do the pod, I was like, I got to bring him a nice gift.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so I opened up 23-year-old Pappy Van Winkle, because you and I were talking about it earlier today. We did a workshop.
Yes.
And we were talking before the start of the workshop. You were saying you buy stuff, collect it without the intention to flip it. I've done that with like Pappy Van Winkle throughout the years. Like I've never flipped one of them, but I know that this 23-year bottle of Pappy that I was lucky enough to purchase at $500 or less. I don't know the exact price because it was so long ago. I know that trades on the open market for, it can be $20,000 price tag for 23, right? A 15-year will go for $3,500, $4,500.
Wow.
23 years super rare, especially on specific years. And so basically we opened up a $20,000 bottle of Pappy.
Wow.
As part of, because they started this TikTok Johnny Drinks. He's a mortgage guy, actually. So
He bought the bottle?
No. He didn't buy the bottle. I brought it.
Oh, you had it.
I brought it,
wow.
surprised him during the pod.
Man,
We cracked it.
that's great.
We had a little taste.
Yeah.
He's a 30-year mortgage vet, which is why I wanted to do the pod with him, because he blew up on TikTok making drinks for people during the pandemic, making drinks for his son during the pandemic,
cool.
basically.
Yeah.
And so we'll link that pod up because that's a great pod.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to check that out.
They just launched a pod too.
We've literally gotten through 2 of your bullet points.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I'll rapid fire through the rest, but Top Producer is owned by Realtor.com.
Yeah.
And Realtor.com noticed my talent, and so they started asking me to be a national speaker. So then when I started becoming a national speaker and I was loving social media, I was touring, and Inman News hired me away from Realtor.com. Brad Inman, his team recruited me.
As an employee or a contractor?
As an employee.
Because I was fuzzy on that. We've never talked about that.
Yeah. No, I was working for Realtor.com. I had started Tech Savvy Agent. That was what I ended up calling the blog and the videos. Yeah. And because I started it working for them, they own that brand. So they own the Tech Savvy Agent.
They've done a lot with it too, by the way.
Well, the funny thing is, I'm like, it's 140 videos of me. That's literally what it is. It's like it's 140 videos of me. So I'm like, all right, if you guys want it, go for it. They didn't realize I was the asset.
Yeah.
And so anyway, long story short, Inman makes me a really cool offer. They took me out on a yacht. They were wining and dining me. They made me this huge offer.
Can we disclose the offer or no?
It was great. I mean, I will say it was.
What year was this?
I would say, well, 2012, 2011.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that there was ownership involved
Because
of the company. So that was big.
Really?
Yeah. And kind of commission revenue share of the profit, but it all fell apart. It's a long story that I don't
You
even
never
want to
ended
go
up.
into.
You never ended up being an owner of Inman.
I never did.
Okay.
No, I really wanted to.
So
That was a big part of the reason I took the gig.
But you took some type of an employment deal, and eventually you were going to work into some type of equity piece.
Yeah, and I think it would have happened. But there was just internal drama. It actually was, it's stupid because it had nothing to do with Brad. It had nothing to do with me.
Okay.
So I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
And it sort of was just bad timing. So I was with Inman like 18 months and all that started going down. And I was doing a lot of stuff with Katie. It was kind of like Chris and Katie. I emceed Connect. We did 24 cities for Agent Reboot. We, I think, tripled the revenue for Inman in 12 months. Like, we blew that thing up.
Who was running Inman at the time? Was it Brad or was it Mark and Brian?
Brad was at the point in his career where he was like, it was like Willy Wonka. He was like giving me the candy factory.
Yeah.
And he gave it to me and Katie.
Okay.
And so we hosted Connect twice. He was not the
So
MC.
Mark
It's the
and,
first
Mark
time
and
he
Brian
ever,
weren't there? Mark Davison and Brian of 1000 Watt, they weren't there, or were they there?
they were not at Inman, no.
Okay.
They were at 1000 Watt and they were a part of Connect.
So they had already left Inman at this time?
Yes.
All right, so how much access did you have to Brad Inman, and what was it like working with Brad Inman? What kind of operator is he?
Well, Brad is one of the most interesting people you'll ever meet. I remember the first time I saw him give his opening vision speech, it was about Central Park, and it just blew me away. I was like, man, this is a poet, you know, and he is a writer. I don't know if people know this.
Yeah.
Brad Inman is a journalist.
Yes.
And he's a professional journalist, and he's a great writer, and he started writing in newspapers. And 1997 is when Inman hit the internet before Google. Like, he's old school. And so he knows his stuff. He's super sharp. And he was so early on so many things that by the time I'm meeting him, he's super successful, dude. He had a thing called home gain or home turn.
Yep.
So for
He already exited before.
Dude, he was good. He had points on Curbed with Lockhart Steel. So Brad is, and then he had Vook, which blew up, video books. Brad's a good entrepreneur. I don't know if he's a good operator because he wasn't operating at the time. Mm-hmm. I know that Brad,
he's a true visionary.
I will say Brad, like a lot of people that you will meet, is hard sometimes to work with. And so am I. And I'm okay with that. And he's okay with that. There are people that are okay with being different. Mm-hmm. And sometimes there's a line you can cross with that where it almost becomes, call it talking down to someone versus trying to talk someone up into doing something better. And that line is tricky. And so I will just say that when you're behind the scenes with some of these people like the Brad Inmans of the world, they're not just hugging everybody backstage.
He's moving quickly.
There's people crying backstage. Yeah. I've seen Brad move a whole line of people that were about to go on stage to do a different session that he wanted to do right then. And and these are people that were it's Inman, dude. It's Inman. It's his shit.
It's his show.
Yes, it should be.
He's going to be about him.
He should have never tried to give it to us. It's Inman. It's not Chris. So I think Katie and I did a hell of a job.
Well, you know what? People would, Mark and Brian would certainly argue if it's just only about Brad, then what do you do at the end, right? So Inman has to become a different brand.
Well, it was acquired. Inman is bigger than Brad,
right?
But Connect was Brad.
Yeah.
Connect had Brad's DNA through and through. Mm-hmm. He was the star. And I stepped in and killed it. If you can find people from that era, it was really good. And they loved it because I'm really practical. And Inman was always really visionary. So I would bring it from 30,000 to 3,000 and say, okay, that's cool, man, but we don't care about big data. What should that realtor right there do with everything you just said? I would turn that corner for the audience.
Okay.
And Inman historically, and I think now, is not meant to be X's and O's. Does that make sense? It's meant to be, where's the puck headed? Mm-hmm. What's cool now? It's not meant to be a practical conference. So anyway, I loved it. And I'll tell you what, I'll tell you a story I've never told anybody. And Brad would be fine with me telling this. He and I are very close, even though we butt heads. I texted him the other day, trying to do an all-in pod with Brad Inman. So far, Chris is in and Brad's in for an all-in pod. We need 2 more people. They have to be massive. Long story short, I had to go down to Brad's office to quit. And I was scared as fuck, dude. I was in Brooklyn, and I got on the train. I was so scared because he was in like a cool area in Manhattan.
By the way, if you put that pod together, convince Brad to do it on BAM.
Well, he would. And I told him, I said, the only thing you have to do is show up and just wax poetic, right? Because
let's make it a BAM pod. How crazy would that be? In the comments, let me know if you think that would be just insane.
Yeah. Well, our only sort of rules would be we need a woman and a person of color for the other 2 spots. Mm-hmm. Like we want it to be a diverse set of 4 people, but we would want like Refkin and who's the most powerful woman you can think of right now?
In real estate?
Yeah. Don't say Barbara Corcoran.
No, I was not gonna say Barbara. Who would I honestly say that it is? There's a real lack if you look at the top executives, right?
Mm-hmm. Doesn't have to be an executive.
I think probably it does. Mm-hmm. If you're looking at,
it has to be somebody with a long, seasoned view of the industry and opinions. Robert wouldn't do it. That's one of the issues.
He wouldn't do it. I mean, I don't know. What are you looking at? Better Homes and Garden.
Sherry Chris. Yeah, Sherry, Dottie Herman. Brad knows all of them, man.
Dottie Herman, I would say she's, I don't, it's hard for me to say which one's more powerful than the other. I'm just saying, these are the types of names that have been.
Sherry's one of them.
Listen, I'll tell you one thing for sure, both women and men, there is a huge opportunity for disruption, what we believe as power players in this industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that.
The same, you can call it the good old boys and with a few girls in their club in real estate. It's been the same for a long time.
It has, and that's something about Connect that I don't like. I would say that because it's the same people every year.
Yeah.
And I think that they should try to go to a different conference occasionally. And I love it, and I want to go back. And I get pissed when they don't call me and stuff. Like I'm probably just jealous from afar, but I really think that this industry is so cyclical by nature. Same conference every year, same this every year, same restaurant when we meet. And that's just not how I'm wired. I can't do that. So my brain's a little different. So long story short, I'm taking the train. I'm like shaking in my boots. I go in, and the Vuk office was pretty good size, but his little office was very small. It was like this.
Okay.
And it was a very small room. And I was very, very thoughtful about what I was going to say. I actually wrote it. I actually took several hours to come up with how I wanted to say it because I cared about him that much. And I knew I was quitting at a time when he needed me. Mm-hmm. That was hard to do. And at the same time, I think it was also helpful for me to quit. So anyway, it was a tough conversation. Probably the most intense conversation I've ever had in my life with another person one-on-one. Where I wasn't scared because it wasn't like that, but it was like, oh shit. There's a level of ruthlessness that exists that I didn't know existed because you kind of just everything's fun, right? Everything's good. You're making speeches, but when you run a real business. And your business is going through challenges and you're losing money. Shit gets real, dude.
Yeah, it does.
And so I don't know all the economics and the financials of everything that happened. I don't. But I know that when I quit, I have never seen someone more upset in my life than how upset he was with me. And that was with me virtually perfectly explaining my goals. And he said something I never forgot in that interview. And it was a dig. It was a dig, but it was one of those I'm glad he said it in hindsight. Because I was there basically saying hey, I've got all these cool ideas and why can't we still work on the new stuff? I wasn't trying to I loved them. I'm I want to work at Inman and do the new stuff. I was trying to make it happen.
Yeah.
It was tricky.
You like to do a lot of things.
I do. I'm an entrepreneur. But the thing is, when you're a media company like Inman, you can't be investing in the companies that are on stage. It's there's a line in the sand. And I was so drawn to, Dot Loop and some of these other folks that I've worked for. So he looked at me and he said, I can't wait to see what happens if you ever stick to something. That's what he said. And it was man, he's fucking right. Because Quicken Loans, 18 months. Top producer, 3 years. Inman News, 18 months. Okay? He was right. And him saying that made me realize that I was making the right decision to become an entrepreneur and to go out on my own. I knew it right then, and I stuck with something. I stuck with Curaytor. And I won't say how much Curaytor's worth, but he'd be proud of me. And so that, I think, is a lesson we can learn through a incredibly difficult conversation with emotion, with sort of pheromones and shaking. And like, it wasn't like a fight, but it was intense.
Yeah.
This is a real people going through a real fucking hard thing, dude. And so I'll never forget that moment. And I love Brad for that. I'm glad he did that. And I know he's okay with me talking about this because this is the real stories of the industry that people don't talk about. And I think that's something that hopefully moving forward, some of these back channel lobby con, can start to maybe come to the light. And the reason is because it's the truth about how things work. It isn't because people thought someone was some way and they're a different way. No. If you want to run a real business, if you want to run a big business, if you want to run a fast growing business, if you want the influence Brad Inman has, where Zillow's kissing his ass, to be clear, when you're in that position, it is not as easy as people think. And they think they lean towards the writing and the personal brand stuff. That's the fun stuff, dude. P&Ls suck. Nobody likes doing those. So anyway, it was a crazy moment, and we've been close ever since. Like we didn't break up that day. It was more kind of like a moment where it was kind of like, yeah, I'm you 30 years ago, and I should do this. Like he knew, but it was just the timing. Sometimes timing is.
He thought it was too early for you to take that step.
No, I don't think it was that. I think it was more so, I'm dealing with some shit right now, and I don't want to add this to my plate of you quitting, Yeah. It was more, that was pretty much the vibe. And it was kind of like, I had made my decision. I once tried to fire someone. My first job as a manager of a restaurant. And I'll never forget, I had to take this guy that was a cook. He was the nicest guy. And he had stolen some wings from the freezer, lived in Cleveland. And so I had to go fire him. And I brought him in this dry storage room, and the owner had told me how to do it.
Okay. Dude, you got to do it in the dry storage room. This is the secret in the restaurant business.
I think you do that if it's a guy. I do not think you do that if it's.
I think you'd be insane to do do that to anybody. Nowadays.
Well, the door was open. We didn't shut the door, but we went into dry.
In the closet after this pod, Bobby. I have
oh my God. So, if anybody ever says I need you to come with me, we're heading to the dry storage. Like you're fired, basically. Like if it's the freezer, it's a blunt. If it's dry storage, you're getting fired. Right?
I love that you just dropped. It's a blunt.
Yeah.
That might be the first time on this pod.
Well, that's what freezers are for in the restaurant business. So
specifically a blunt, not a J-bomb.
It was Cleveland. We were smoking blunts. So I take this guy in the storage room, man, and it was like, I started firing him, and I was so bad at it. I felt so bad. I'm looking at him. I felt terrible. I stopped during the firing and said, hold on. Let me go try to get your job back. I left him in the dry storage room.
Wait here.
And I went to the owner and said,
purgatory of the dry storage room.
Instead, I said, Matt, we can't fire this guy. Can we just do something else? And he's like, Chris, get your ass back there and fire him. You can't half fire someone. Anyway.
It gets easier the more you do it.
It does. It does. And I've never had a problem with it since. Mm-hmm. But that first time was really, really hard. And so anyway, those sort of, I wanted to back out of quitting.
Yeah.
I didn't want Brad to be upset with me and be disappointed. Well, I wanted him to like me. Like I want everybody else to like me.
Here's what's interesting too about that firing story. It's a restaurant. You were beginning to be a leader and that kind of thing. Firing gets a lot easier when the expectations and standards are so crystal clear up front that it's, hey, we're not in alignment here. We need to both move on. Because this is what we agreed to. This is what's not happening.
Right.
This relationship's over.
Yes.
That's when it gets easy, when you as a leader are so over the top transparent, when everything is crystal clear. Where it's hard for somebody to fire somebody is they failed as a leader.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we definitely had a rule that you could not steal the Philly cheesesteaks out the back door. I mean, so we set that expectation.
Yeah, listen,
No, I got you. Yeah. I get it, dude. I know what you mean by that. And the bigger the company is, the more they do that. In my experience, like they have what are called OKRs, and then they have KPIs.
Yeah. So OKRs are and KPIs are, just for people listening that don't know.
Well, a KPI is a key performance indicator.
And OKR is basically the same thing, but
it's almost like the KPIs are what lead to the OKRs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the OKRs are quarterly and the KPIs are more monthly that lead to the quarterly. And the OKRs are more just like a high level, like it would be something
if
like.
you're into EOS, it's your rock.
Yeah.
It's
I'm blanking on the acronym.
Yeah, I don't know. Bobby, look up OKR.
There's someone that invented it.
To me, OKR is rocks. So, because somebody invented rocks for EOS. But you're right. Yeah. The
objectives and key results.
Yep. There you
Correct.
go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Objectives and key results.
Yeah.
And then the KPIs are the very specific numbers that help you hit that. So
how many calls am I going to make to hit that? How many leads do I need to actually get to that goal?
Yeah. And it's documented.
Yeah.
Because HR doesn't want you to not document things. It's really hard to fire people if you haven't documented any problems, even if the one problem they have is really big. So anyway, OKRs, KPIs, as you get big and scale, that's what people look for. And then Curaytor is sort of where I ended up. I went to Dotloop, wrote a book with Austin. Dotloop got bought for $108 million by Zillow. I didn't want to work for Zillow, so I just quit Dotloop because it was over. I got a big check and parted ways, and it was a great experience. But I was doing that as part-time while I was starting Curaytor. And so Curaytor has just been a decade-long inbound marketing with outbound sales experiment in this industry. And where I think that...
Do you think that's where most people know you from, Curaytor or the books?
Probably the books.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, my books have hundreds of thousands of readers.
Yeah.
And my clients at Curaytor, maybe 500-600 teams, maybe 5,000-6,000 agents on their teams total or something like that. So my brand is bigger. Most people know me from Inman and from Tech Savvy Agent and from all the stuff I set up until now. But Curaytor became my thing. Chris was Curaytor. It was Chris Smith Inc. when it started, and it was people that would see me speak. Every time they'd see me speak, like today, we did this workshop. At the end of that ChatGPT workshop, if I would have said, "Hey, does anybody here want to hire me and my team?"
And let's just make sure we link up all our ChatGPT stuff that we're doing with Chris right now.
Yeah. If I would have said, anybody that wants me and my team to do all their prompt engineering for them, let us know. We can take care of that. We'll do it for you. How many people would have did that right then?
Yeah.
Dozens and dozens would have paid thousands and thousands. So our shirts at Curaytor just said, we do it for you. One thing people don't know about Curaytor, do you know what Curaytor means? Do you know what that word stands for? Not mine, but just in general.
Just in general, it's taking, from my perspective or my definition of it would be taking, a lot of information and kind of making it, putting your own POV on it. For example, like it could be
that is content curation.
It could be taking 3 headlines. That's gonna be a 3-segment show, AKA the Real Word. I'm gonna put my POV on top of it. Basically, the whole Real Word podcast is me curating.
Yeah, the Chris list. Chris list is all curation.
Yeah,
and adding my opinion. But the word Curaytor was established well before the word content curator.
Okay.
So it's founded in the museum world. And a curator is in charge of choosing what should go on the wall and what should get sent back. So the Louvre is getting hundreds of thousands of submissions every year. The curator's job is to look at all of that art and say, this one should be on the wall.
Narrow down to the best.
Yep, narrow it down to the best.
And that's content, right? On that example I gave you with the podcast, it's like, okay, there might be 15 articles this week that we're looking at, but what are the 3 that are actually going to make the pod that are the most important to discuss on this particular channel?
Exactly. Yeah, you're whittling it down.
Yeah.
And then with if you picture all these things in a museum, and that's a very prestigious job. It's a cool job. It's almost like a historian or an archaeologist. And so the reason we called the company Curaytor was because we knew that realtors did not care about the tech. They just cared about the execution. So they didn't want a website. They wanted leads and business. They didn't want an email tool. They wanted emails being sent that were great. They didn't want to run Facebook ads. They wanted Facebook ads running. And so what we did is we actually, not a lot of people know this, we are the world's first company to offer 2 CRMs to realtors. And that just sounds like a bad idea.
It definitely does sound like
and this is how early we were, 2013.
Because most agents can't get their mind wrapped around one CRM.
No, but here's the thing. In 2013, FollowUp Boss And contactually, we're the best 2 CRMs by far. FollowUp Boss
In
was
2013. I mean, I'd probably argue that right now, 2023, FollowUp Boss is in the top spot.
Yeah, but the issue is, and I'm a big reason they are, because we used FollowUp Boss. We sold it for them.
Yeah.
Their first 1,000 customers came from me. He didn't have a sales team. I love Dan. They did great work. They picked up the baton that Top Producer dropped, right? When Top Producer was kind of dealing with all that change management, and that kind of rocky transition, Dan came in, and it was perfect timing because Dan built FollowUp Boss for one reason: to follow up and convert internet leads. And there's nothing else like that. There was nothing that had all the lead sources connected. There was nothing.
Right.
And so we used FollowUp Boss, but it didn't have anything for Sphere, past clients. Like it was literally like a lead conversion tool.
Right.
For internet lead sources.
Right.
And it was great. The thing that made FollowUp Boss click out of the gates was the auto text message feature when it came out, because people had been getting leads forever and they had emailed them forever and called them. But as soon as you send a text that says, "Hey, first name, Byron, just got your information from Zillow. Do you have a second?" So now the lead's coming in and the text is going out, and then the lead's replying to the text, and that's when you know you got the lead. That's different. So that was a big moment for people. So FollowUp Boss was more of an internet lead FollowUp Boss. It doesn't sound like past client sphere of influence, right? Contactually was built for relationships.
Yeah.
So
Contactually was really good with that.
exactly.
Yeah.
We knew what was the best because we were the best bloggers. We were the best vloggers. I worked at it and I knew everything. So I was looking at all the stuff and I was like, okay, listings to leads and Happy Grasshopper and FollowUp Boss and Playster. And so these tools, we didn't build any of them. We were the mortar between the bricks. We curated the best tools and connected them and set them up for you and used them for you. We were basically an agency. But as we did that over time, a lot of the tools that we used had large flaws and limitations in how we wanted to use them.
Right.
So it wasn't necessarily that they weren't good tools long term. It was just that as we evolved and were building out the way that we wanted things to happen, there were limitations. One example is how hard it was to segment email lists. Email list segmenting was awful. It's still pretty bad. If you're a real email marketer, you got to be able to do some really cool segmentation of your list. User tracking. No, people weren't tracking what people did on the website. Landing pages. Landing page tools, they would take, realtors had them and they wouldn't use them. We created a technology that you literally went to a URL, any listing. You go to the URL, you put /full. That turns into a full registration landing page in 1 second. You put /email, email only, /phone, phone only. We helped people turn a listing or a piece of content into a landing page in 1 second. And that was huge because we knew our clients. We knew they needed stuff that was fast and simple and easy. So over time, we sort of slowly went down the path of becoming a software company as well. And so now it's our stuff. But we still partner on a lot of stuff. Chime, FollowUp Boss. Like we do not try to be everything. We are the best at marketing.
Yeah.
And we don't even have the best platform. We have the best brains and people and ideas.
Copywriting.
And what we think is that like the platform has become a commodity. And I don't know if that's a controversial statement, but Sync, Inside Real Estate, KV Core, YLOPO, Boomtown, Firepoint, Sierra Interactive. Should I keep going?
You've hit the big ones for sure. You've hit the big ones. We love you all.
And I don't want to hurt your sponsorships, but
No.
they all do the same shit.
Yeah.
They all do exactly the same shit. Now, they might have a killer feature here and there.
FollowUp Boss doesn't have an IDX site where obviously Boomtown has the IDX facing side.
There's a couple little things.
some
But
things like
ultimately,
yeah.
you know, if you have, call it YLOPO website or a Curaytor website,
Right.
and you have FollowUp Boss CRM, you have Boomtown.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? So
You combine
what
products,
happened
yeah.
is from 2010 to 2020 was the era for that stuff.
Yeah.
High volume lead gen, landing pages, squeeze pages, stealth pages, Facebook ads, Google ads, listing alerts, user tracking, call and dial, double dialers. That was the best way for realtors to use the internet to generate business for about 10 straight years. And so we were always kind of weird because it was like, we don't like any of that stuff. But meanwhile, you're a realtor, so you got to do that stuff because that's what everybody's doing. At least that's what you think. So we sort of took this stance that said, we don't want to make people register, and we don't want to do listing alerts, and we don't think it's cool to just make everything automated. Like, I don't want my listing to rocket. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I want to handcraft that motherfucker. I want to make it beautiful. I want to do professional Fifth Avenue ad agency type marketing and advertising for a seller. And there's not a technology in the world that does that. Luxury Presence doesn't do that.
Right.
Ylopo doesn't do that. Curaytor doesn't do that. Humans do that. And with AI and all this stuff, it'll get easier and better. But the reality is that, like, marketing is what builds your brand. And when you do marketing that builds your brand, you attract clients and you get to stop chasing leads.
I want to push back on that because you say it all the time. Stop chasing leads.
Yeah.
It's in your book.
I teach people how to do inside sales more than anyone.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love that you say stop chasing leads. And then on the other side of the equation, the agent who's just getting into the business must chase leads, I would argue. If you're going to make it in this business and avoid the 87+% who fail by year 4, and you take what you say literally on day 1, you're going to be part of the 87%. You're not going to make it. No, hear me out for a second, because I am the biggest believer in building, and I did it from day one myself, building content online or wherever, right? Building this brand locally in your community, all these different things that are going to attract business where leads are going to be chasing you.
Correct.
But in the beginning, if you don't chase side by side with building that name recognition, unless you've got money to fund yourself, I'm just saying, hey, the person who doesn't have the money, who's got to get a paycheck in 90 days, you're going to have to do some chasing in the beginning. You're going to have to put in some sweat equity in year 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, of course. But there's a difference. Like, think about it. If you stop chasing leads, it means you were chasing them. The person you described wasn't chasing leads. That's the difference. So your team needs to stop chasing leads and start attracting clients. It insinuates that you did all the Boomtown stuff and you did all the stuff we're talking about, and that you're kind of like ready to move on.
I have a database of X amount. I've built it up and I've got the foundation, and I can now decide to build internally what those other companies have done for me.
Correct. And not even so much that you get rid of those things. I mean, if Tom Ferry were
you
teaching
let the
this
other
or
pillars
Ben Kennedy,
outgrow
exactly
that core business, maybe.
Yeah, and then what you do is you do inbound marketing and outbound sales.
Yeah.
Now, back to your person that's new. What does the person that's new have more?
Let's say the solo agent who's new doesn't have a team to leverage. If you got a team to leverage.
So it's a solo agent that's new.
Brand new.
They have no business.
At a traditional, I'm going to do nothing for you shop.
Okay. And so is it fair to say they have a lot of time?
I would assume that they do.
Okay.
I would assume that, actually, you know what? I'm going to assume that they don't have a lot of time. Here's why. We know that agents get in, got a kid, have a second one on the way, have to work, a part-time job at night, waiting tables because I got to pay the bills while I'm building this career. So I'll say have time to go into the business, but don't have what I had the fortune of, which is 7 days a week, 12, 14 hours a day, unlimited time. Don't have that. Have your traditional, call it 30 to 45 hours.
And who should that person focus on, in your opinion, when they start? Who should be the first people they tell that they're a realtor and that they should send people their way?
Well, for sure, everybody should know based off of, and this is where it's going to blend a little bit to what you're saying, just based off of everything you're putting out there in the world. But that's building the brand. Okay, that's letting everybody know that who you are. What you need to be doing in the rest of your time is finding, chasing, getting after the people that are ready to transact in the next 30 to 90.
Sure.
And that's going to be, okay, there's an old lead list of people who have raised their hand in the last 2 years. You're calling and reaching out.
Yeah.
There's an expired listing that happened yesterday. That's the warmest lead in your market.
Yeah. Listen, when I'm a first-year employee, I don't say one word. I do everything I'm asked better than anybody, and I don't even think about one thing until year 2. So that's probably why everybody likes me, and then I leave because I literally head down. They hired me.
Year 2, Chris is like, got the goods.
Year 2, it's like, okay, now I'm number 1. Let's talk. You know? Yeah. But listen, what I want to be able to do is I don't want to be a sleazy salesperson.
Well, that's
so
right.
I don't want to chase leads. Chasing leads has a negative connotation. I'm not saying I don't want to talk to people. I'm not saying I don't want to pound the phones or knock on doors or do door duty or do open houses or do showings for a listing agent or go take the, leaves out of the gutter. I'll do all of that.
All right, so we're in
What
agreement.
I'm saying is if I want to convert people from the internet and social media into real business, it is not going to be sales that does that, my friend. It's going to be content marketing. So what I would do is instead of going and spamming all my friends and saying, I'm a realtor now, what is that going to do? You should go spend some of your time creating content that's great.
Absolutely.
So that you then...
So everybody knows that you're a realtor. I get that part.
So that when you do outreach, so when we were calling our leads at Curaytor last week, guess what we were saying? Hey, we just created an ebook. Would you like a free copy? Just checking in.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I'll send it over. Isn't that a good reason to call?
Absolutely.
So marketing and sales, this is the biggest challenge and problem. If you look at all the data in my book, they're not aligned. You're thinking of them as 2 different activities. That's the problem.
Well, having an expired in your market, warmest lead, there's not really, you could put together a piece of content and call them and say, hey, I just saw that you didn't sell your house. I got this piece of content I want to send over. I have a case study of why people in this market.
Content can be scripts too. Content can be phone calls.
Absolutely, right? So you can, or you can go more direct, sales script. Let's be honest here, where it's, hey, saw your house was on the market, no longer is.
Yeah.
Are you still having thoughts of selling the house?
I love that. I love that people do that and can do that, and it works. When something works, people should do it, relatively speaking. The problem is, what is the opportunity cost of it? So you're giving a great example. Expireds, FISBOs, call it the dirty back channel shit. I'm talking about Facebook.
The expired who is going to transact in the next 30, 90 days because they're just lucky they got out of that 6-month contract with the agent that let them down, and they're looking for their price.
So they should work on sales, correct? That agent needs to be better at sales in that example.
That agent needs to be really good at where you were going just a couple minutes ago, where you're like having the most conversations in the market.
Yep.
That agent needs to be really good at having the most conversations, articulating that conversation a number of different ways, having the data to back it up in their market. And so there's, you're not just going to go day 1 and highly convert these calls. As you get experience and as you practice, I'm a believer in practicing. If you're a fresh agent, you've been waiting tables, you've been working retail, maybe retail, you'll have a little bit of a sales component depending on where you're working, but maybe you're coming out of a school teacher. We've seen a lot of school teachers, some have really good success in the last couple of years, some go back to teaching. You're coming out of an environment like that, and you don't learn some basic sales like you did at Quicken, it's going to be hard to convert on the content only. Only, because even
I understand.
We just did a 3-hour workshop.
Yeah.
It was teaching, but mixed in there was a couple QVC drops of, hey, let's convert.
So let me address this, because you're absolutely right that people should learn sales before they learn marketing. Again, I don't think of them as 2 different things. I think everybody should read Exactly What to Say for Real Estate Agents.
100%. I've been talking about this forever.
Yeah. So that's a book I wrote with Phil M. Jones and Jimmy.
That is a great book as well. I thought you were going to say They Ask You Answer, that book, which is another great book.
No, that's Marcus Sheridan. That's a good book too.
But your book is great as well.
Thank you. Yeah, it's better than that book because it's about conversations real estate agents actually have, common, critical, and difficult. So what I would do is I would go get that book for $8 or free with Audible, and I would go to the field guide. And what we did in the field guide is we said, here are the most common, critical, and difficult conversations agents have today. And we didn't make those up. We had a workshop for 2 days in Boston with the top agents in the country. And they told us. And then we came up with how to use these magic words and phrases when they say that. And what we learned in that experiment was that you guys all know what the other person will say. You have their script down. You just don't know what to say back when they say what they say.
Right.
So that was what was so fascinating, was like, man, you guys have what they say memorized. But when we say, hey, when they say that, what do you say? It's like, well, I don't know. You don't have that part, exactly what to say. It's a great book. So I would, yes, whoever that person is you're describing needs to do sales. I was doing sales all day too, right? What was I doing at night? Marketing. Building so I don't want to say it's either or. Now, there are some people that should cut the cord. There are people listening. I want to be very clear about this. There are people listening right now that never want another IDX forced registration landing page Facebook lead ever again. And they should cut the cord. It's okay to cut the cord. You don't need Zillow. You don't need Facebook. You don't need Instagram. You don't need Curaytor. You don't need Ylopo. You know what I'm saying? None of those things truly are going to be what moves the needle. So I think there's people like you and the Matt Leonettis and the Glenda Bakers. And do you think Glenda Baker should have an ISA? Do you really think she should have an ISA?
Yeah, but listen.
Should Matt Leonetti have an ISA? He doesn't need an ISA.
Let's be straight, though. First of all, Glenda does need an ISA.
Mm-hmm.
I will, knowing enough about, and Glenda, if you're watching, maybe you're going to, because we haven't had this conversation, maybe Glenda's going to counter this. Glenda has so much inbound lead, especially referral, because of her brand, that she does need somebody, whether you call it an ISA or something, to quarterback all those inbound leads that she's getting. Leads are chasing her, as opposed to her chasing leads.
Yeah.
So I would argue that she does need somebody quarterbacking that.
You want to be an ISA like you guys call an ISA.
But what I'm saying is, listen, depending on what type of business, it starts with what type of business you want to start.
Exactly.
Do you want to have?
That's the big point, because the people I'm saying should cut the cord, they don't care about making more money or being bigger than they are.
Right.
They're loving it. Glenda shouldn't care about that for 1 second. She should be just keep trying to get on Netflix. Because when you get bigger and bigger and bigger, all those problems seem to take care of themselves. She needs an executive assistant. She needs a PR firm.
Which she has. She has somebody quarterbacking all this. She has an executive assistant
and
doing
she
that.
should have someone that's good at sales that calls the leads and closes the leads. Yes.
I could argue that Glenda's going to make more money dishing out referrals than she is maybe getting on Netflix, though. But that's a whole nother discussion.
So you're telling me that she wouldn't generate more referrals if she had
I
a
think she
fucking
should do
Netflix show?
Netflix. I think she should do it.
They work together. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, of
because
course.
She's special. What you guys all try to do is you don't let the talent be the talent.
Yeah.
You try to make them do what you guys think they should do. Let her do her. She doesn't need a fucking ISA. She should never do internet leads. So all I'm saying is there's a lot of people that want to be like Glenda, not like Boomtown.
But there's a lot of people that aren't going to be Glenda.
That's great. Good for them. They should learn sales. They should get, there's more than one way to do it. All I'm saying is from the time I wrote the first book until the new book, content marketing and building your brand became as lucrative as ISA cold calling did.
100%.
Okay, then I would just rather have people call me. I don't want to call people.
I agree with you.
Tom Ferry calls me. Glenn Sanford calls me. Seriously. I call him back. I'm not saying I don't call him back, but I don't chase leads. So I want people to experience that because I worked in the cubicle, dude. I was the one making all the damn calls. I know how hard it is. But so I just think that my reality now is better than people's reality now.
Yes. I'm in agreement. Perfect world scenario. And then there's going to be a lot of agents who, like I said, fit into the 30 to 45 hour a week box. That's the time they have to put into their business. They've got other stuff going on in their life, and their leads need to be generated for them. Whether that, and that's why teams have exploded, right?
Of course.
There's 1.5 million agents in NAR alone, and there's more than that on top. There's not going to be 1.5 million Glendas who have leads chasing them, right? And so it's, how do I get into a room around the people that have leads chasing them? How do I partner with Zillow where leads are chasing Zillow? How do I create an environment where I can do the business that I want to do? And to your point, if you already have a business built up and you're getting 20 referrals a year and that's what you want to do for business, so you don't want to grow and you want to stay flat, cut, like you said, cut the cord. Don't do freaking coaching. Don't do, any IDX sites. Don't do anything. Just do your 20 deals.
But the way I hear people talk about that, it's like they're vilifying that idea.
No, I'm not vilifying
I think that's actually why the industry's great. I don't think the industry's great because of 2,400 homes sold a year kind of teams.
Absolutely.
I love those teams. They're my favorite teams. I work with them. They hire me. They got tons of money. Veronica is one of my best friends. it is amazing that that's possible. But I just think we have to quit poo-pooing on the lady that's doing 15 mil and doesn't want to do anything
Oh, 15 mil is a great business.
Yeah.
Let's be real.
I met a girl in here, Ken Pozek's office. I said, hey, how long you been doing this? She goes, about a year. I go, how many homes you sell? She goes, 9. I go, that's pretty fucking good.
Depending on the price point, for sure. Because, I mean, if it's a part-time gig at 9 homes or 250, I mean, if it's a full-time gig, 9 homes, $250,000.
Let's say
price
$500K
point,
because where we're at.
Yeah, that's $4.5 million.
Okay.
It's going to be.
How much income is that?
It's going to be hard to survive off of that income.
I understand that, but that's less than 1 home a year, and that's her first year.
Okay, yeah, no,
So
it's a good,
she
it's
gets
a good
a year
foundation.
too. She gets a year too.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, everything is relative to the price point.
Yes.
And is it your full-time job, and is it your only income?
Yeah.
And everybody's got a different business. Where I think maybe you're getting confused, people poo-pooing, it's when somebody says, I want to triple my business, and I refuse to partner with anybody that can help me get there, whether
Yes.
that's Zillow, whether that's a coach, whether that's a curator.
Gotcha.
I want to triple my business, and I just expect these leads to fall out of the sky into my lap.
So that is what, when I have had time to hang out with Gary Vee a little bit and just watch his stuff, that is what he calls your talk just not being as big as your action. You're talking, you're a chihuahua. So I don't really spend time on those. I'm not the dog whisperer. I'm the lead whisperer. I don't really try to convince anybody to be different. I really don't, because if they don't want to do it, they're not going to do it. So like, at least for me, it's like, okay, you want to triple your business. What's your plan? That's the first thing I always say. What's your plan? And they go, I don't have one. That's why we're on the phone. So if you don't have a plan, you need a partner.
Yeah.
Because Tom Ferry's got a plan. That I'll say. Mike Ferry's got a plan. Brian Buffini's got a plan. You know what I'm saying? Curaytor has a plan. Boomtown has a plan. So if you don't have a plan, we're better than no plan.
Massive plan.
Zillow's plan is one of the most amazing plans ever.
Yeah.
And it happened over a long period of time. So if somebody doesn't have a plan,
Yep.
then I would say they need help. But if they don't really mean it, because this is something I think that nobody wants to talk about. Most of the people that say that, they don't actually mean it. It isn't that they won't do what it takes. It's that they don't mean it.
Okay. We've covered so much on this pod.
This is fun.
It's a lot of fun.
Yes. Let us know in the comments if you want a part 2.
I want to leave everybody with one thing. What's holding so many people back from actually having a plan in their business? Like personally, what's holding humans back from taking the action to build the plan that they've been thinking about in their head?
Yeah.
What are the different dynamics?
Can you hand me that picture? Please be careful with it.
That's so funny.
Hand me that picture. So we're in Orlando, okay? And I don't know if this, we can link this up.
You can edit it in, right?
Yeah,
You can edit that in.
you can cut to it. This is Disney. This is either 1951, 1957. Walt Disney drew that by hand. And what he did is he knew that if we can build this thing in a way that it all works together, like he basically drew where he wanted his life and plan to end up at the end of it. So he started at the end, and then he drew how to make it. So if you look at this,
We're putting it up on the
yeah. So but if you look at this, right? He knew. So films were their thing. Okay. So he knew if we do films, that'll make people want the music. If you watch a movie and you do the music, you might want to watch our TV shows too. And if you do all that, you'll probably come to the theme park. And if you come to the theme park, you'll probably buy anything, merchandise, right? And every time you come here, it makes you want to watch that next movie more. Yeah. So Gary Keller showed me that in his office. I had a private
North Star.
That's the North Star. That's the thing. But what happens is, that's why Gary says you got to think bigger than you've ever thought before. Because the people that are waking up, Byron, that are making that happen, don't ask what you just asked. And so what happens is people make short plans. They don't make big plans.
Right.
They don't have big, hairy, audacious goals, BHAGs. The way you accomplish a BHAG is you get out of your head.
I understand the person that's you're going to go, right, get out of your head. But what I'm saying is, and we talked about it a little bit off air, what are the things that are actually stopping people, a personal constraint that doesn't get them to even into planning
Yeah, well,
mode?
I mean, it's a limiting belief, part of it. Part of it is mindset, whether that's if somebody, well, I meet people that tell me they're depressed a lot. And it's because they know that I'm bipolar and they feel comfortable coming to me, and it's a really, really hard
This
thing.
is where I want to go with it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, I get it. And so
There's a lot of agents, unadmittedly, that aren't feeling great.
it's hard. So number one, when I talk about mental health, I always just give a disclaimer that I don't know anything. And this is just,
Mental health experts
I'll
don't
share
know anything. By the
my
way.
journey.
So
as someone who is bipolar, who has had a manic episode, who was put into a psychiatric facility, I understand mental health more than most people. My mother, her father, my daughter, like this is a real thing for us. So I never even knew I was. And it hit me like later in life, and it got triggered. And what happened is, it's like I went from being who I am. You know, I'm a positive, enthusiastic, relatable, funny, like all the words you would use.
Extremely creative.
They all went away. They all went away.
Creativity.
Boring, monotone, reserved. That's what I was post manic episode.
Okay.
So that is what bipolar means, right? Bipolar.
Yeah,
And
opposite.
it's funny, when I went to the hospital, I said, ma'am, I'm not bipolar. I have way more than 2 poles. I'm like, I'm many poles. Like, I didn't know what it meant either. I'm like everybody else. Most people watching, they don't know what it really means to be bipolar. They don't know that 10% of bipolar people kill themselves.
Jesus.
They don't know that 1/3 of bipolar people never go back to work again after a manic episode. So it's a real bad disease. People see Kanye. People hear about Van Gogh. Guess who else was bipolar? Kurt Cobain. Like everybody that you can name that was creative, that was bipolar, almost all of them killed themselves. It's not a good disease. And so what I want people to understand is that there is a good part to it if you can figure it out. And I don't know if everybody can. I feel like throughout my life, have been able to channel it and turn it into a superpower, where some of the things that when you're bipolar, you have grandiose thoughts. You think you're larger than life and you can take over the world. You kind of need that blind faith.
It's like that book, Alter Ego.
Yeah. You have endless energy. I mean, I have endless energy, but it's not because I don't even work out. You know what I'm saying? It's just, that's how I'm wired. You also, your personality, there's all these attributes that people have that are bipolar. The problem is the other half of it is the depression, where you don't want to get out of bed, you don't want to sit up, you don't want to do anything.
That, whether it's bipolar, depression,
anxiety,
some other anxiety, some other mental issue going on, that is where I think there's a lot of agents and just people in general get into a rut. I got into a 3-year period of my life where I felt that way. I just kept living in regret because I made massive mistakes, buying loans from people like Quicken Loans, these types of people.
Sorry.
Right?
I feel like I owe you an apology.
No, it's completely my fault.
Yeah.
And for never during that 3 year would I say, oh man, it's their fault for giving me those loans. I just kept living in regret, didn't want to move. I was immobilized. I couldn't, I was in the mud. I was in the concrete. I wasn't bipolar. But I was definitely, I don't know if it was depression, but I wasn't able to act on anything. I couldn't make progress. I wasn't getting better. I was just flatlined for the longest period of time.
Well, that's depression if your baseline's way higher.
Yeah.
So that's why it was so easy for me to realize there was a problem, because I'm like a level 11 or 12 every day. And when you go down to like level 4, everybody's like, what happened to Chris? It's very, very obvious.
Me, I hit a breaking point. And I don't really know how to explain, what I just hated what I was doing so much that I kind of had this, I guess, an epiphany, breaking point, whatever, this inflection point where I just went the other direction. And I just started to actually learn from other people and pour into myself and self-development. It just started this like momentum, this compounding effect every single day. But
that's right.
And I talk about that. I don't think it hits I don't think I even explain it
the way you really felt.
The way I really felt. And so how do we help somebody who's feeling stuck get it going?
Well, the first thing you need to understand is that it's very natural to want to not put your pain on others. That's how I am. So I'm not the depressed guy that's like angry. I'm just very reserved, and I just don't say much. I'm just very quiet, and I never wanted to burden my family with my depression. So I get really quiet. Like I'm not mean, I'm not angry. I'm just super reserved, and my natural personality is so big and vibrant that when they see that, they know something's happening. What you're explaining, and the thing I keep thinking about as you talk is, I get asked all the time, what does it mean to be successful? How did you become successful? What's it like? What does it mean to be success? How do you define success? And this is something I want everybody to understand. Success in life, my definition is that your inner dialogue with yourself is positive. Yeah. That's it. And depression, it's not. That's the problem. So you're not burdening others. You're fucking yourself up all day. Your negative self-talk, your racing thoughts, it eats at you. And it is this idea that becomes your actions, that becomes your words, that becomes your life.
The way I've always explained it to myself is living in the past as opposed to living in the future. When I live in the future, my self-talk, like you're talking about, is always really positive.
Yeah.
Because I'm super optimistic about tomorrow.
Sure.
I'm super optimistic about next year.
Yeah.
I'm super optimistic about the plan.
Yep.
It's really exciting to think about. And
So let me give you what they tell you. A psychologist would tell you.
Am I wrong on that or no?
No, you're 100% right. Depression is the past and anxiety is the future.
Anxiety. Ooh. Because I feel so less anxious though right now than I ever did when I was in that time frame.
Depression. Anxiety is like nerves, and it's different, and it's sort of, maybe your chest gets tight, but like it's not the same as depression.
I'll tell you, my first 3 years in real estate.
But the point there, just so I don't forget that, you need to live in the day that you're in.
Oh, for sure.
Because when you're depressed, it's because you're wishing things were better, or maybe longing for a better time.
Yeah.
And when you're anxious, it's because right now is not as important as what's coming. And there's a great quote I never forgot. Be where your feet are. And
that's maybe where I've gotten closer to that point, because I really ignore a lot of the past. A lot of people think that's a fault of mine, but that's just kind of how since 2012 to today, I've done that. I've just ignored the past, and it's now and the future. That's really where my head's always at.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of psychologists that will tell you that you don't have to work through all your past pain to make progress. Everybody doesn't have to go talk about their childhood trauma to be happy.
Yeah.
It's not like that. A lot of people, it's actually bad for them to keep reliving it in therapy over and over.
To your point about where anxiety kicked in, I probably had it, and I don't think I've ever told this story. In my first 2-3 years of real estate, I probably was pretty anxious because, you described anxiety of really only focusing on the future and not the now. Is that how you described it? Is that how I heard it?
That's exactly right.
Okay. That's definitely what I was doing, because I was at rock bottom and I was like, I need to get going. I was working 14 hours a day. But the story I'm going to tell you is I was sweating through my clothes every day for 3 years straight. Now I never do. I was getting sweaty pits on a listing appointment, so I'd wear the sports jacket, make sure I didn't, because I'd be bleeding through my shirts. Yeah, I started buying T-shirts that had the
Beyonce got apparently there's a surgery you can get to remove the glands.
Well, there was like a.
Have you heard of that? Yeah.
No, there was a T-shirt which had this big like.
Thing you catch it.
It was the most uncomfortable thing in the world. I stopped wearing it. I tried it for like 2 months. I was like, this isn't gonna work.
Oh my god!
But it wasn't until I got to a place where I felt really comfortable doing. I always love that book, Outliers. Like when I had put in my hours and I started to feel comfortable, that to your point, just talking it through right now, I could start focusing on today as much as the future.
Yeah.
And the sweats went away naturally.
Well, yeah, it's true, man. It's true. And the literal sweats. That's the thing.
The literal.
Yeah.
The literal ones.
Yeah. And I think one of the best things that's happening about mental health is that people actually understand it's a real thing. Because when we were growing up, it wasn't a thing. Like if someone was crazy, they were just crazy. They weren't bipolar, psychotic, or they were just hyper. They weren't ADHD, or they were just, my dad used to call me Eeyore, always moping around the house.
Yeah.
That wasn't called depression. There was no pharmaceuticals to help you with it. So what I want to hit on here to kind of bring that part of this full circle is very simple. Your actions are the only thing that matter when you feel that way. because you can't control those thoughts. What you can control is your actions. So what I do is I get my fucking ass out of bed and I go get the dog and I walk that fucker and I come home and I make a coffee and I get in the shower and I take a shower. You know what I'm saying? And I get dressed. I focus on my actions.
So have an actionable routine that can get the mindset starting to shift the other direction, because it's a momentum thing for sure.
It is. And so what happens is when you start like, and this is something, this is something I've said that really helped a lot of people. So it's this idea that like everybody wakes up and has negative thoughts.
Yep.
What I do is I don't judge how I feel when I wake up. I judge how I feel when I'm done with that routine. And I just don't even, it doesn't even enter my mind anymore how am I feeling. I used to wake up every day, dude. It's just like, is this going to be a good day or a bad day? And when you're depressed, by the way, within 1 second of waking up, you know you're going to have a bad day.
100%.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And you know, I'll tell you this, I'll be honest. I lied to myself because I was sleeping a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I had my calendar and it was like an appointment at 9, appointment 11, appointment at 1, in between those appointments, I would sleep.
Yep.
And I thought it was like, I'm kind of rich and I'm doing good, so I just get to sleep all day. like I started justifying it to myself. Like, of course I'm in bed at 11. That's why I worked so hard for so long. like I'm telling you, man, people start doing this inner dialogue. So the thing that I just need practical, actionable advice, dude. I don't need any theory. So the actionable advice for me is focus on your actions. Have a routine, make a list, stick to it. My parents were both cops. Disciplinarians, checklists, punishments, restrictions. No getting off restrictions early. Like, you know what I mean? Very militaristic. You have got to have a routine and you've got to stick to it, and just don't judge how you feel when you get up. And then there's medicine that helps people, dude. The thing about the medicine that I think people don't understand, most bipolar medicine sucks to take because it makes you lethargic. Mm-hmm. The goal of it is, it's called lamotrigine. It's called a mood stabilizer. And it's meant to keep you from getting manic and having a manic episode, which you don't want to have. They're awful. Well, they're good and then they're awful. It's a long story. So you're sort of in this kind of limbo. And man, I personally, and I've only told this to one person in a setting like this, but I self-medicated with marijuana my whole life. Mm-hmm. From the time I went to college, started smoking weed. And I know a lot of the stoner stereotype is, at least from back then, it was true. It was lazy, hitting the bong, sleeping on the couch, the guy on the couch, like
eating potato chips.
Yeah, like half baked, right? Yeah. Like that was the persona back then. But because I'm bipolar, and I don't know if this is the case for everybody, but like for whatever reason, it gave me more energy, not less. It made me more active, not less active.
Okay.
Yeah, it made me more creative, not lazy. So for whatever reason, for me,
you start doing more and more and more of it, probably. Just assuming.
Well, no, I mean, I think it's almost been kind of like a medicine for me in many ways. Like I probably have smoked a lot more than most people, but I also I wasn't like smoking during the day. Like I would work, like kind of like happy hour. Get off, you go have a beer. Okay. I would get off and go smoke a joint.
Got it.
So and I don't drink. So it's like, everybody's got to have something, right? We all have at least one vice, right? So as I was younger, I smoked. I didn't think about it. Smoked, went to college, Okay. Well, the thing that triggered my manic episode, and I'm willing to share this because I think some people don't realize that this is a thing. So there's a thing called drug-induced mania, which is where you basically overdose, and that's what triggers the manic episode. You're bipolar or you're not, okay? You don't become bipolar. You're bipolar or you're not.
Before you're
born. When you are born, you are bipolar. Okay. You might not get diagnosed until much later in life. You might not get diagnosed.
How old did you start smoking marijuana?
The second I moved out of the cop's house.
Which was that 18 or 12? Like, what was that
18.
age? Oh,
yeah.
18.
I went to Florida State.
So you didn't start...
I went to Florida State. I lived in a dorm with a couple buddies from college.
You didn't start smoking weed at 12 years old?
No.
Because...
No, I never touched it. I never drank or smoked. I hit a blunt one time when I was in 11th grade, and I hated it. I never touched it again.
I think there can be, and this is a whole nother rabbit hole, I think there can be some chemical imbalances when people start...
Too early? For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
your brain's still developing,
Yeah.
listen, weed's not all good. I don't want to make
No,
it
no,
sound
that's
like that.
that's exactly where I'm going with
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
So there, especially when you're young.
Yeah.
But because my parents were so strict, and back then there wasn't vapes and stuff, you couldn't really hide it. Like smell like weed.
Yeah, they were going to know.
They would take me to jail.
Especially if they were in law enforcement.
Yes,
they were going to know.
I know. So I never needed it. I was fine. Went to college, and it's just my dorm room neighbors smoked all day. So I just smoked with them, and it slowly took off. But the reason I had a manic episode is I actually switched to medical marijuana. Florida became a state where it was legal.
Yeah.
I had just been buying weed for my friend my whole life, dime bag, quarter ounce, whatever. The black market. Well, I thought, it would be much safer because it was regulated to get a license and to do it officially through the state.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. I just like a lot of people here in Florida, got my license and went down. And when you're smoking weed from your buddy, you just get an ounce and roll joints and pack bongs. And like, you don't get a lot of choices. They don't say, hey, let me show you all the stuff I got. I'm like, the trench coat guy.
It's not super scientific.
It's not,
Yeah.
dude. It's like,
If
you're
you
just
get it
hoping
from-
there's not a lot of stems and sticks.
You get it
to be
from
quite honest.
Smokey around the block.
Yeah. You got to
Do you know
take
that movie reference, Bobby?
Yeah.
Friday.
Friday.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you could,
I knew you got it.
You
but
got to take what you got to take.
the youngin.
So that was my whole thought. So I get into this, I get the card and I go in, and the way that they handle this is very poor. They basically encourage you to try it all to see which one is best for you. Because there's a lot of people that have never smoked before.
Right.
Well, I've been smoking for 20 years. I know it's,
There's different levels.
dude, there's cookies, there's food. There's,
tequila's going to hit you harder than wine is going to,
Yeah.
something like that.
well, there's a percentage of THC in
Right.
weed.
For
And
different
normal
percentages,
weed
yeah.
that grows from the ground is awesome. It's a beautiful thing. It's an amazing plant. I love it. Medical marijuana is manufactured in a lab. And what they do is they take the THC as high as they can get it. So I was taking pills that were 93% THC.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Sounds insane.
Dude, when I got to the hospital, I told the doctor, I said, it's the red pill. Because it was red, like Matrix. I'm like, it was the red pill. It's sativa. I know the reason I'm this way is that. Like, I knew it. Because I started taking it, and I was traveling. I didn't want to bring weed. I took a pill. Dude, that shit is serious.
You got red pilled.
Oh, my God. And you're right. I got red pilled. And basically, to your point about tequila, I guess the analogy I would use would be, there's people that drink a couple of beers every night, and this would be like if you drink a fifth of 151.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the same.
No.
Drinking a beer is not the same as drinking a fifth.
Right, because it's like you're talking 5% or
It's-
7%
Yeah,
151.
exactly. So it was sort of like I went from, call it 15% THC to 93%. And you have to be really careful. Now, I don't know if you've ever smoked. I don't know if you're willing
Yeah, no,
to-
I have.
Okay.
Definitely.
Do you ever get paranoid?
No, listen, the reason I brought up the 12-year-old example, that's when I started smoking weed. I was
geez.
12 years old. dude.
Yes. You started and stopped early, or?
I stopped. No, I smoked for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've ever said this on a podcast.
We can
So
cut it.
no, we'll keep it in. I mean, it's real
Yeah.
stuff. When my first daughter was born,
Mm-hmm.
which was 6+ years ago, I retired from ever doing a shot of alcohol. That's when you get the most waste. You just start doing shots. Like,
Yeah,
to your
yeah.
point of the 150. Do a shot. So I retired. So people ask me, "Hey, do a shot, celebratory." I retired from doing shots when my first daughter was born. Can't argue with that. When my second daughter was born, 2020. So we're just talking, 2.5 years ago. I stopped cold turkey smoking weed. I only had stopped for a 2 to 3 year time period when I was working in a nuclear power plant because you had to.
Yeah.
You got
Sure.
tested. But from 12 years old until that time,
Yeah.
I only had that 2 to 3 year break. Stopped cold turkey and just said, it's just it wasn't useful for me.
Yeah.
So
Well, everybody quits and starts again, and it's hard to quit sometimes. And people say it's not
didn't-
addictive. It is addictive.
it
It is
for me,
addictive. Like
when-
it's addictive in the sense that it's kind of nice. Like it's like a beer is addictive.
when
Like,
I attached it to my second daughter's born, I need more capacity in my life to accomplish the things that I want to do. It mentally made it extremely easy for me. And I haven't had a single puff. I have stopped on a dime. And leading up to that, I had tried to quit smoking weed multiple times.
But the why was big enough that last time.
When I attached it to that and what I need to get done over the next 20 years as I'm raising these two girls, I haven't thought twice about it.
Yeah. Listen, if you can be happy and content and positive and active and awesome without any pharmaceuticals, do that. I am so jealous. Like, people are jealous of some of the stuff that I get to do. I'm jealous of my father-in-law. I mean, he's just like a happy dude.
I've went crazy the other direction, and it annoys the hell out of my wife because it's like I focused in on the nutrition. Like, I only eat 3 times a day. I don't have any snacks.
Got a salad? Yeah.
I had a salad at lunch, right? Like, I eat the same thing for breakfast, the same thing for lunch, and then dinner, some type of protein. But I have this really strict morning routine. Like, I've just keep chipping away, and that's been kind of my high, so to speak, of doing that kind of stuff.
Well, that's the other thing is people are going to typically, like, your usage of drugs, your usage of these things is going to go up as your depression goes up.
Yeah.
So the worse you're doing, the more you'll do. And there is a point where there's too much. So I'm not advocating everybody start smoking weed and taking drugs and doing this stuff. I take Wellbutrin, which is a antidepressant.
Yeah.
I take lamotrigine, which is a mood stabilizer, and I smoke a little pot. And that, for me, has gotten me to a place where I think as long as I just am smart and, like, I'm good.
And disclaimer here, we don't know what the hell anything is for anি
No,
What
no, because I've seen, when you're into this world, I mean, I was locked up for 2 months. The first month was in a state-owned facility. The second month was more of like a bougie one.
Ooh.
But that first month was the hardest month of my life, dude.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Oh, my God. And it's because they couldn't get my levels right. Because they're trying to stabilize you. You know, are you a threat to yourself and others? And if the answer is not no, they can't let you go.
Right.
And so I had a weird issue. I have a stomach issue, some random unrelated thing. And the medicine they were putting on wasn't working. So I was supposed to there 3 days, I was there 3 weeks. It's like, what's going on here? Dude, when that happens to your life, you get a real big wake-up call about a couple things. Number one, not much matters. Your family, your friends, and your job is the only thing that matters. Number two, you don't matter. You're in this little routine now, and I've been in this dog and pony show for 15 years. I put out content every day. I come from contribution. I help people. I think I give more value than almost anybody on the fucking internet. And I went away for 4 months and no one cared. It isn't that they didn't care. It's that life's going to keep going.
Yeah.
You're not as important as you think you are.
Something else came into that space.
I needed that because I had been on that up and right trajectory for maybe 12 or 13 straight years. And I had got a little bit caught up reading my own press clippings.
Okay, that's interesting, yeah.
Not over the top and not anywhere to the degree that I see a lot of people behind the scenes end up.
It's the contagion I talk about.
It is. But yeah, I think, listen, man, this is a tough gig to be public all the time.
Yeah.
You can mess up a time or two. I messed up. I was tweeting weird shit. Like, I had a public breakdown. That is not good for your family, for your life, for your career. But it just put everything in perspective. I remember my friend Amy Younger, and I said, Amy, I'm never going to be the same. I don't feel the same, you know? She goes, of course you're never going to be the same. You're going to be better. She goes, now you've got your everything you were, and you lived through this.
And the way you are just navigating the environment, the industry that we're in, you're impacting so many people. I mean, I don't even feel like you've even started, and we just spent however long we spent, a long time talking about all the stuff you've done, and you're still young as hell, and you are going to do so many other things. So it's like, it's amazing to watch kind of and have this relationship with you because it's beautiful to see.
Thank you, dude. I appreciate that. And I'm building my Disney is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that's why I showed that. What Gary Keller told me,
Ken, we're gonna steal that. By the way, we're gonna walk out of
Well,
here. with that.
Gary,
I'll send you
dude,
a
I
PDF.
think
All
the
right,
one
we got
in
a
Gary
PDF.
Keller's office is the real one.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, he has the OG copy.
Yes. I don't want to misquote this, but I'm almost positive that the one in Gary Keller's office is the actual one Disney drew.
Talk about collectibles.
Dude,
That's gotta be worth
He's a
something.
really cool guy, centric. I got to spend about 2 hours with him alone, and this is over 10 years ago when I wrote my first book. I went and interviewed him when he had the one thing coming out.
He's somebody I'd love to talk to.
He's the most fascinating guy. Yeah. He will tell you a story. You'll have no idea what he's talking about, and then it'll become an epiphany all of a sudden. Like he was telling stories about guitars, and it just somehow it comes full circle. But what he told me is, he said the people that don't do that don't think big and don't write what they want their life to be. So I did that when I left his office, and I put these things on a map. I literally drew my Disney.
Yeah.
And so for me, like the book and Curaytor and these things that I'm doing, maybe that's why I'm in a good zone, because I'm just waking up and making that happen.
That's right.
I'm not trying to figure out what that is. And if you're willing to think big and go, when I die, if that's what I accomplish, I'm good. It's a good feeling to have that moment.
So have that next step to take. That's knowing where your next step is.
Yes. And what
You may
Gary
not
said,
ultimately go the way you thought you were going to go,
it's all connected.
but have that momentum of the step forward.
Yeah, and it is all connected. If you do it the right way, it's really connected. So the way I think about it is, the workshop we did today is me preparing for being a guest lecturer at Harvard soon.
Right.
And the podcast we're doing is me, like, I'll be a little bit better when Guy Raz interviews me for how I built this because of this. So I don't even look at like what I'm doing right now as small.
This
I
will
look
be
at
a
it
way better interview
Yeah.
than that, though, by the way. So
He's really good. But just so I don't lose this point, he said, people who focus on their checking account are the people who live check to check.
yeah.
And the people that focus long-term, think long-term, have a plan, write it down, wake up, try to make it happen, they do all right for themselves.
And 64% of people live paycheck to paycheck. So which camp are you going to be in? Dude, I freaking love you, man.
Nice to meet you.
Nice
Nice
to
to meet you, Byron.
meet
I love
you.
you too. I
Nice
love
to
you.
meet you.
I love you, man. No,
This
you
is
know what
great.
I want? Well, we did just meet, which is also
We actually-
fascinating. Yeah.
Because we've had this long relationship on Zoom and these kind of things.
Yeah.
And then we just met in person
Yeah,
today.
it's weird. I'm sure a lot of people feel that way about you because you've been, putting out such great content and you're in my feed all the time. So yeah, it's fun to meet for the first time. And I like what you said there, because the other limiting belief that I let go of when I went through all that shit is that I'm anywhere near my potential. Because it's weird when you get your early 40s, you start almost like, okay, you got a kid, you're living in the burbs, your kids are teenagers. And I started thinking it wasn't that I thought I made it. It was that I didn't realize. So I started thinking, oh, shoot. I go, Curaytor's not my VaynerMedia. Curaytor's my wine library.
I've got a question for you. And I want everybody that's on YouTube to answer in the comments as well. What do you believe your peak age in life is going to be, your peak? Because I know what mine, I believe, in my head is going to be.
Yeah.
So
Well,
you said you're in your 40s.
Yeah, I'm 43.
43. Where's your peak? Because you're there's going to be a point where it's like, I've got all this experience. I'm firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
Right? Like there should probably be a term limit in politics for, obvious reasons. We got all these
Should be a
old folks.
term limit in Instagrammers.
There should be a term limit on social media. And in the comments, let me know what you think yours is. What's going to be your peak age?
Yeah. And
You feel like you're hitting a stride right now, but what do you think it's going to be?
yeah. Probably about 10 more years from now. Yeah.
Mine's
maybe
55.
Yeah, right in there.
I feel like 55 is the peak.
Yeah, what I do when I think about getting older is I look at people that I look up to and I just figure out how old they are and I go, oh, if he's still doing that at that age, I'm good.
And then at 55, it'll be 65.
Yeah, because like Bill Belichick's 70 years old.
Exactly.
He's a head coach. Do you know how hard it is to be a head coach of a football team? Andy Reid is 65 and out of shape. He's still doing just fine.
So it's
I'm
always
going,
10 years ahead.
Yeah, so I think what happens is right now we're 43.
Well, I'm 38, but yeah.
Oh, hush.
I got a little ways to go here.
Listen, close enough. Listen, we're both in our late 30s, early 40s. But like, I do think that I thought the 12 years I just went through were the best years.
Right.
And now I know that they're not. As I'm starting these new projects, some of the stuff that I've been telling you about behind the scenes, it's just like, oh, there is something really valuable to having a lot of experience.
Yeah.
Because the mistakes I made in all of these other stories that I've told, I'm avoiding. And I'm accelerating my ability to get product market fit and to create the right culture from day one, and like to have an accountant much sooner, like all those mistakes that you make, find the right business partners and have the right articles of incorporation and equity distributions. There's so much that you can sort of do better when you get the next at bat. So I'm pumped, man. When I am 55, I will be a business legend.
Make sure that if you went all the way through this pod, you hit Chris up on Twitter, you hit him up on Instagram, say, hey, appreciated what you shared, because I know I appreciate what you shared. This was fantastic. Mm-hmm. So go hit Chris up.
And I hope, and people can send me private messages, dude. People don't like talking about, don't like talking about a lot of this stuff publicly. I've had people share such personal stuff, and I would never share what they share with me privately. But there are so many people that are affected by mental illness that aren't the ones that are mentally ill. Yeah. And that's the thing that I think
family members, people that have trust me, we could do a whole
it's harder on
4-hour podcast on that kind of stuff for sure.
Yeah, like my mania was harder for my wife than it was for me.
Yeah.
It's really, really tricky. So anyway, man, it is a conversation worth having. People are happy to hit me up. Like, and by the way, you might catch me on a day where I feel like shit.
I'd love to do more of that stuff with you, because I think it's super impactful, and I think all of us, everybody can relate in one way or another, personally, or like you're saying, somebody around. Appreciate it.
Yeah, good stuff, man.
Hit Chris up on social, and if you want to get just more of a flavor of Chris Smith, go check out one of his 4 books. They're all amazing.
Yeah, thank you. Cheers.